Module 4, Explore Azure App Service Deployment Slots. In this module, let us learn about the benefits of deployment slots, how the swapping between the slots work, how the performance could be optimized in this facilitation of swapping like zero downtime, and how do you do the swapping or auto swapping enablement, and traffic routing, how do you do manually or automatically, we shall explore. Now in this, what is meant by a deployment slot? A deployment slot is nothing but another website that is running on the same server where your rest of the websites could be running. It could be your production or testing or dev, whichever you think about. And the beauty of the slot is it will have its own domain. It will have the same configurations like any other web app, including authentication, custom domain mapping, app configurations, you name it, anything, all these would be there. Now, anytime you can test your application, the latest version of your application in the slots. And if you think everything is working fine, you can swap between those testing slots to this QA slot, then from QA to staging, and then from staging to production. Now, usually as a best practice, we will use staging slots in the production server. The rest of the other QA, dev, and all these will keep in a separate environment. Only for production, we'll bring the code into staging first, and from staging slot to production, we will be doing a swapping. That's most of the business case best practice. Now, what is a stage environment? It's just another web app, as I told to you. So if you're running a standard, premium, or an isolated pricing tier, which are all for productions, in these you can create slots depending on the pricing tier, up to 5 or 10. And it could vary accordingly depending on the pricing tiers. Those number of slots you will create. So non-production slot, the benefit is simple. You deploy your code, you don't know how good it is. So you can bring it into a stage slot, you can test it with real-time production traffic, or you can just do a preview swap with a production configuration and see if everything works, and then you can take it to production. Not only that, swapping does not reboot your web application, which means there is no downtime. It's zero downtime. In a zero downtime, you can easily perform an upgrade or an update to your latest production website without disturbing the end customers, until and unless you don't upgrade a specialized feature. And beyond that, when a swapping is done, let's say, for example, something is fishy. I believe that there is some issue that I figured in the production. Now you can again perform the rollback of the swap by reswapping, because swapping is a concept where you take your code, for example, from staging web server to production web server. You swap the code in the stage server to production, and the code in the production web server will be swapped to stage environment. So it's only the code that is getting swapped. Now, by chance something went wrong, again you can repeat the swap. So you bring back your last version, which is last well-known version of production code in the stage, back to the production. Now, some of the swapping features includes these. First one, if you are doing swapping, there are some slot specific settings like connection strings and all these, including continuous deployment settings. There are something like app authentication settings and all. So things that can be and cannot be swapped if you take. So these are some of the specific settings that are related to a slot, and these, by using certain configurations, you can or you cannot swap. So it's applicable in both cases. There are some settings for it. So every time when a swapping is completed, you don't get a restart. That's an advantage, and that's going to happen in production. Whereas the source from where the swapping is done, let's say it's a kind of staging slot, there could be a downtime, which is not a concern for us. Similarly, there is an option of local cache feature, and this can be useful for making your HTTP request to not have a complete downtime in a way such that it should make a call to root and then get the response. So caching can help you to get a response quicker while your swapped website is taking a moment to completely bring online. Similarly, if you swap by using a facility called custom warm-up trigger that is based on the application request that comes in, your application request will go to source slot where the swapping happened, where the last version of the code is available until the latest production version is coming online. So basically, when you do auto swapping feature, this thing comes into the existence. Now, if swapping is completed and your latest production is online, then you can ensure that you're already communicating with the latest one. And the other part could be, you can also use something called routing rules. What is that? So if suppose I'm not sure my latest swap version of the code is great or not, I want to test it. So you can use the inbuilt load balancing facility, where let's say out of 100%, 10% of the traffic I can route to staging, 90% I can route to production, where when a customer hits the production URL, his traffic will go to stage environment to confirm if the connection works. So this way we can guarantee that you test your stage environment before you go for production. So now this way you can make sure that if something goes wrong, you can roll back, you can restart, which are all the advantages. Now some deployment slots related activities could be like you can swap between multiple slots, and that can be found in the deployment slots menu of your web app. So you can do auto swapping, you can do something called swap with preview, where before a code is swapped to production, you can test that code with the production connection strings before swapping is done. You test in a stage environment, and after that, if you believe everything is correct, then you can go further to the complete swap. You can do custom warm up, that is like you warm up your swap environment to make sure that it just comes online on the fly, and also you can roll back if something goes wrong, which are all advantages. So when I talk about the routing, this is the feature. In the deployment slots menu, there is an option called traffic. In that, you can give the percentage. As I told earlier, if suppose to the stage slot, I want to send 10 requests out of 100, then in the stage slot, you put a number like 10%. So for all each 100 requests that come to the production, 90 will go to production and 10 may get routed to the stage environment. This way, without implementing an external tool or a service, you can do a real-time production testing of the stage environment before you take that to production. You can even do the manual routing of the stage traffic. For that, you can use a request header, which is XMS routing with a parameter value pointing to your staging environment. In a code level, you can also do that, and this can help you to release or make your user to get routed to the beta version. In our case, that's going to be stage environment, and that could be easily tested out. As a summary, in this lesson, you learned about the benefits of slots, how the slot swapping things are happening, manual and auto swapping features we explored, and traffic routing feature we have discussed. So do give a shot for the knowledge check questions in the right side.